Hey, thanks everyone for being here. I'm Eric Simons, and this is Albert Pai. We are the co-creators of StackBlitz. So for those of you that weren't at our really short presentation the other day, StackBlitz is an online IDE where you can really quickly create Angular apps. So it's great for prototyping, which is what we're going to be talking about. So before we kind of get into the features that we've built that make prototyping with StackBlitz and Angular super awesome, I want to just quickly kind of circle back to kind of the motivations behind our work on StackBlitz. And really it came down to two problems that we kind of kept running into when we were developing on our local environments or if we were teaching other people how to use Angular. And really the first one is that getting a local environment set up and running is just a huge buzzkill. You know, you have to, if you want to have an idea and you're like, I want to build an app right now, you have to get the CLI installed, then you have to generate the project and then npm install that and then get it up and running and then you can start editing and that can take forever. And of course, the harder part about this is that, sometimes that doesn't even work. You'll run into problems with that, and this is more of an annoyance for people who have developed web applications a lot. But this is really tough for beginners because they often can't delineate between what's a problem with Angular and what's a problem with else, right? They're like, oh my God, Angular's broken, and then it's actually their file system ran out of watchers or something, right? So we wanted to create something that not only was super awesome for prototyping, but also just solve these problems with local environments. And we had this idea, all these tools locally are written in JavaScript, right? So can't we just copy and paste that into the browser and it'll just work there, So it turns out it's not, you can't really copy and paste them into the browser. It doesn't really work, but it is possible. So Albert and I are suckers for a good challenge, and we sunk 9 months of our lives into making all this stuff actually work inside of the browser. And that's how StackBlitz came to be. So, but the whole point of us creating StackBlitz wasn't really to just get it working in the browser, right? It wasn't just kind of a true false, can we do this? The whole point is that we want it to be better than your local environment, right? Especially for prototyping. And if you want to be better than your local environment when you're prototyping, what matters? Well, it's got to be faster. Prototyping is all about how fast can I get my idea into my fingertips, into the computer, and then get a response from it, right? So it's going to have to be, not just a little bit faster, it's going to be 5x faster. Things are going to be Scream, right? And it's a tall order to do in a web browser, much less getting that sort of performance increase on local. But again, we're suckers for a good challenge. So the question here is what do we really need to improve by 5x? What takes up a lot of time? Well, how about installing packages, right? How many times do you hit npm install and then when grabbed a cup of coffee? Because it's taken so long. Come back, it's done, right? What happens after that, though? There's all these new modules. You have to rebundle, have to recompile. That takes forever, right? So these are the two areas where we saw, in the developer experience, were really a huge buzzkill. And so before we even started working on StackBlitz, we actually wanted to figure out if we could solve this problem. And we were able to do it, and we came up with two pieces of technology that solve it. The first is a npm client that works entirely within your browser, and we call it Turbo. And Turbo operates at least 5 times faster on average than npm and Yarn, and that's because it's super smart. So Turbo actually only installs the stuff your application needs, not just the entire tarball. And what that actually leads to is that it decimates the size of your node modules. We see up to 2 orders of magnitude of reduction in the size of your node modules with Turbo. And that's really one of the key parts of what made us allow this to work entirely inside of your browser. All right? And so Turbo took out the npm side of this equation. On the bundler and dev server side, we created this thing called Hyperboot, and it basically allows you to do super fast rebundling. It's about 5 times faster than Browserify or any other the things out there, largely because it's all in memory. And it's super robust. You can just kind of dump Webpack loaders on this thing with a little bit of tweaking, and they pretty much just work. And it's powered by progressive web app APIs. So specifically, this is actually running inside of your browser's service worker. So it's kind of like Inception. StackBlitz itself is a PWA that lets you build PWAs offline. So people will take StackBlitz, jump on a plane without internet, and they can keep on going, right? And you can refresh the page, it keeps on working, right? So these are like the core things that really make it awesome for prototyping, is the stuff that's kind of under the hood. And so I wanted to make sure that we kind of talked about that. But we have a lot of Angular-specific stuff that makes prototyping in StackBlitz a total dream. And so a couple of those are one-click CLI generator. How many people here use the Angular CLI, then the generator specifically? All right, that's a good number of hands. So in StackBlitz, there's a really simple way of doing that. StackBlitz also comes out of the box with the Angular language service. You have your components getting shown up in the IntelliSense. And what we actually announced the other day, now you can even pull out your mobile phone, and over the air, you can have your application being hot reload and debug it, right? So it makes it really awesome to build progressive web apps with Angular quickly. So without further ado, I'm going to do a quick demo of some of the functionality here for those of you that might not have used StackBlitz before. So this is the StackBlitz homepage. For me to create a new project, all I have to do is just click on Angular, and boom. I now have a development environment for Angular. It's going to boot up, and that's my running application. It ships out of the box with hot reloading, so I can go ahead and just say ng-conf. See it hot reloads over there. No configuration to have to install anything, right? And we have a lot of the awesome stuff that VS Code ships with inside of StackBlitz, like IntelliSense. So if I start typing, it's going to tell me the things I could possibly be typing in here, right? And of course, it shows me this error overlay, as things happen here. Another cool thing is that it'll actually show you inside of our console here what exactly happened. If you click on it, it'll open the file. So the file's open right now. If I go over here, click on that, boom, it'll take me exactly to where that error is happening, right? So very tightly coupled development experience inside of this thing. So like I was mentioning, this actually can work offline. And so because the service worker is actually serving this, I can actually open this dev server URL in a separate browser tab, browser window. Open this thing up over here. And I'm going to kill the Wi-Fi just for the sake of this demo. All right, so I'm now offline, right? So if I go to google.com or something, it's going to, what? Oh, I'm plugged into the internet. OK, all right. OK, so now if I go offline, there we go. All right, that's the message you should get. OK. Tried to trick you all, but OK. So I'm genuinely offline now, and if I go over here and I hit refresh, reloads, right? This is a completely different browser tab. I can go in here, do another hot reload. Hot reloads across both of them at the same time. So this will work offline, which is pretty cool. And this also allows you to have your kind of native debugging experience. So I can go ahead and just pull up the console, and I can put a console log down here and just say hello. So that same exact debugging experience we have down here. You can't really see it. Let me zoom in. So you can see it says hello right there, right? So that's super cool. Now, for Angular-specific features, we have the CLI generators in browser, like I was mentioning. And this has got to be the coolest way to use the CLI generators, got to say. Instead of having to open up a command line or anything and CD to the right directory before generating it, any folder in StackBlitz, all you have to do is just right-click, and they show up here. And so I'll zoom in a little bit. You can see all the different things I can generate inside this folder, right? Are those icons pretty? So I'm going to just generate a component here, give it a name, home component. I'm going to hit enter, and boom, immediately scaffolded this folder with our CSS, our HTML, TypeScript file for this component, and even imported it into our app module automatically, just like the CLI does locally, right? And so I can actually use this now in my, my app component here, and I'll go ahead and start typing app. And you can see that this is the Angular language service working right here. It sees that component. I can just hit tab, autocomplete. It says home works, right? So that's how fast it is to scaffold a component. So it allows you to really prototype applications really quickly, because I can go here and say, OK, I want a profile page. I want a shared module, right? Create a module on that. Inside that shared module, I want a user service. As I'm typing this stuff out, right? Like I created this service, automatically got linked into that shared module. Same thing with the app module. It automatically has these components. You can just rapidly scaffold out applications like record time, right? So the last thing I want to show before I hand it over to Albert, who's got a way cooler demo than me here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show how fast it is to install NPM packages with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let me revert what I did here. I want to get that the hello message back. And I'm going to go ahead and import moment, the date library. So I'm going to import moment from moment. Oop. And you see it's yelling at me because we haven't installed it yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and use it anyways. I like living life on the edge. And then I'm going to say moment.fromNow. And so this is a method that will say a few seconds ago, right, because we're doing it from now. And you'll see this is a little piece of technology we made inside the dev server. So as you're typing, it's constantly looking at what modules you're trying to access. And if it sees something you're trying to access from NPM, it'll say, hey, you don't have this thing. Do you want to install it? And I can say, OK, yeah, you know, I forgot to install that thing. And it installs the dependency, and then boom. So it shows up, right? So that's all I got. Albert's got something really cool. It's an idea we've been kicking around. So we want to do kind of a live coding session over teleport, over the air. Everyone can pull out their phones and whatever have you. And so we got this idea for this. We think Zuck's going to want to buy this. It's Instagram, but like 2 times better. So we're going to sell it for like $2 billion instead of $1 billion to him. And he's going to code that live on stage in like 10 minutes. So Albert, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Hey, how's everyone doing? So let's see if we can build a $1 billion prototype on stage at $2 billion at ng-conf. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this project so it's a little easier for you guys to access. So ng-conf-demo. So now if you guys go to ng-conf-demo.stackblitz.io, you guys can follow along as I build this prototype. And while you guys do that, I'm going to drop in some CSS for this, just so it looks a little prettier. And I'm going to reload on save. So what we're going to be building is we're going to have a video component up here. It's going to be feeding in from our webcam. We're going to be using progressive web app APIs for that. And then we're going to have the ability to toggle a few filters on that. So the first thing I'm going to do is use those Angular Cli generators to generate a camera component. So that's generated, imported into our project. So let's go ahead and go to our app component template, wipe out what's already there, and then we'll place the app component on the app camera component on the page. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. That should be loading on all your devices. So now you guys can see camera works. We have our camera component being displayed. So now what we got to do in our camera component is, well, we got to place a video element on the page. And let's wire up our webcam to it. So we're going to say video and hashtag video. So that's an Angular template reference variable. We're going to be using that to access this video element within our component.
Why do we want to do that, Albert? Like, why do we need to have a reference to that?
So I'm going to go ahead and save. So as you can see, we have the video component in place, but there's no camera wired up to that. So our component's going to need a reference to that element in order to place our camera feed. Oh. So let's go ahead and do that. So in order to do that, we're going to need to import viewchild from Angular core. So viewchild lets you query for either components or elements within the component's template. So let's call the viewchild decorator and use the video selector that we defined earlier. And we're going to put that on the video property on this component. And now, since we have a reference to that video tag, let's go ahead and use it. So video element. It's going to be an HTML video element is equal to this.video, which is what viewchild is returning for us. And we're going to need to unwrap the native element that it gives us, because viewchild can either be a component or an element. So let's go ahead and use the Navigator API. So Navigator, and we're going to access the media devices. And we're going to request the user media. We only want the video. So video, and if at all possible, we want the front-facing camera of the device. So go ahead and define that. That's going to return a promise, which we can call .then on, and that provides us with a media stream, which we can then go ahead and place directly into our source object of the video element. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. It's asking for a video request, and it should just work.
Wait a second. I'm getting a black screen, Albert. The whole don't clap. This isn't working. Like I thought PWAs are supposed to just work. The same APIs work across mobile and desktop.
That's a promise, but thankfully Stack Overflow has a solution. So for iOS to have the functionality autoplayed, we need the autoplay property and the plays inline attribute. Go ahead and hit save. And it should just work.
There we go.
And I'm glad we were able to catch that before we shipped it to Zuck.
Yeah. This teleport thing is nice.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and, now that we have the video stream up, let's go ahead and add some filters to it. So we're going to be using the ng-styles directive. So first we're going to create a getStyles method on our component. And we're going to define a filter. So let filter is equal to, let's put a blur filter on there, maybe like a 5-pixel blur. And return the filter. Whoop. Whoop. Go ahead and now in our component, we want to use ng-style. So go ahead, ng-style, nice language service integration, and then getStyles. So now go ahead and save, and we should be blurry now. So that's cool, but let's try to see if we can add some UI elements, some interfaces that the users can interact with in order to apply these filters on demand. So let's go ahead and create a property for blur. That's going to be a Boolean that we hook into. And then we're going to have a checkbox. So label. We want an input. Type is equal to checkbox. And we want to bind the checked attribute to the blur property that we defined on our component. And whenever that value changes, we want to flip the value of blur. So blur is equal to not blur. Close the input tag, put the blur as a name, and close off the label tag. Go ahead and save. So we're still blurry, but now we have this checkbox that we can interact with.
Uh-oh.
So now let's go ahead and wire up that blur property to the checkbox. So go ahead and take that out. So if this dot blur, we want to set filter plus equals, and add the blur filter. Go ahead and save. And now we're not blurry by default, but we should be able to blur on demand.
That's really nice, Albert. I like that. Yeah, I haven't been out in the sun lately, though. I could use like a sepia filter or something.
Sure. So while we're at it, let's go ahead and add some more filters to this component. So let's define a property for sepia. That can also be a Boolean. Let's also do an invert filter. We'll invert the colors of the camera, because that always looks cool.
Can we also do, like, this thing's like reversed. I want like a mirror. I'm trying to adjust my hair, but it's really hard to.
Oh, it's going the wrong way?
Yeah,
no worries.
We flip that?
Let's do a flip property too. So flip is equal to Boolean. So now
this has been our relationship since we were 13 years old together. Can you do this, Albert?
All right, so let's go ahead and copy this checkbox. Let's paste it a couple more times. And what's nice is you can use some of the shortcuts from VS Code. So you can take blur, replace that with sepia. So we have multiple cursors. And then replace this blur with invert. And this guy with flip. Go ahead and save, and we should have all those checkboxes there, but they're not wired up to our getStyles yet, so let's go ahead and do that.
Inception.
So if if this dot sepia filter plus equals sepia. I'm going to go ahead and save so you guys can start playing with the sepia filter while I wire up the rest.
Oh, much better. Much better.
So if this dot invert, filter plus equals, we want to invert those colors. Go ahead and save. You guys should be able to play with that invert filter now.
This is fun.
And finally, let's do the flip transform. So flip is a different property for CSS. It needs to be a transform property, so let's define another variable for that. Is equal to empty string, and if this dot flip transform plus equals scale x, and we want to flip that over the x-axis. So now we got to return that to our styles, transform, go ahead and save. Now the flip should work.
Oh, yes. Much better.
How's your hair look?
I don't know. What do you guys think?
So what do you think? I think we're on our way to $2 billion.
Yeah. Does anyone have Zuck's number by chance?
I might be friends with him on Facebook.
Cool. Awesome, awesome job, Albert. I don't think you made a mistake once going through the application. That's incredible. Yeah, so we have a fully working. Fully working progressive web app, which is pretty cool. We've been able to test across multiple devices. So that's the end of basically the last demo we have, but we do have one more thing. Here, I'm going to put this down for a second. And we've got this brand new quad-core Chromebook. When I say brand new, it's actually refurbished, and we got it for a deal on the Amazon. But we're going to give it to one of you. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to choose one of you who is connected, and we're going to put an alert on your phone. And if you get it, raise your hand, say, I got it, and then...
I'll give you guys like 10 more seconds to connect, if you guys want it.
Ooh, the heat intensifies.
Right. And then I'm just going to pick one at random.
Make sure it's in Utah, at least.
Yeah, I'll repick if it's not in Utah. And how about this one? I hope it's not this phone, so let's
That'll be pretty funny if it is.
Oh, not my name. So, congratulations, you've won.
Congratulations.
Who got that alert? Anyone? You got it? Come on up.
Nice. All right, and so for at least a handful of other people, we do have some other stuff up here.
Yeah,
I'll use
got
this
the
camera
chart
to demonstrate. We created our own lip brand line. It's called Blitzbomb. You can see there.
Yeah, thanks.
StackBlitz.com in your pocket. It's got some cool logos on it. So my lips have been getting chapped this trip. So if anyone else's, we got some of these, and we also have some stickers. So thank you very much. Come on, find us if you want some of this stuff. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.